everybody, and welcome to another episode of your favorite segment over here on my channel, Out of the Vault. If you are new, let me just say welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. And for all of you returning to hear myself, the Lawn Gnome, talk about the magic of Disney, well, then I'm really glad that you're here because you surely came to the right place. So, you know, even though we have been doing this for so many years and the format has changed, even though I'm not doing these videos as often as I used to, it feels like I'm gone for such a long period of time when it comes to making Out of the Vault episodes. But when I sit down on the couch, excited to turn on the camera and give you guys another review of my thoughts on a piece of Disney magic, it's very heartwarming, and I'm just always so excited to do another episode of Out of the Vault for you. So today we're going to take a look at a movie that I actually reviewed way back in the days of early Lawn Gnome. As a matter of fact, I believe this was done the year I actually started doing Out of the Vault, but at the time, I wasn't including Pixar films, so Pixar films were their own separate movie reviews in the Up From the Underground program. So today we're going to be revisiting the 14th Pixar Studios film from 2013, Monsters University, once again with the reprising roles of Billy Crystal and John Goodman as Mike and Sully. So this was a very interesting movie because it is the very first, and still to this day, the only Pixar Studios prequel film. It is the story of Mike and Sully meeting each other at the prestigious Monsters University. Mike is so passionate about doing what he's been wanting to do ever since he went on an elementary school field trip to Monsters Incorporated. He wants to be a scarer. But because of the fact that he is not the scariest monster, he knows that he has a lot to prove, and he believes that he can be a scary monster. And through his journey, he encounters James Sullivan, the son of a prestigious scarer in the history of monsterdom. But this guy is a slacker. He believes that because he carries the Sullivan name, he's going to be able to coast through life and just be the scarer that he knows he can be. And the two of them meet, and they're not so buddy-buddy. They actually butt heads, and through the experiences that they encounter in their first semester of Monsters University, they learn a lot about each other, but at the same time they learn about themselves. And the most important thing at the very end of this is the fact that bonds of friendship, when they are formed, can be the most important thing that you could ever get from a college experience or any experience in life. So, before I get into my thoughts now, seeing it for the first time in a long time, let's take a look at what past Lawn Gnome had to say about Monsters University after he saw it in theaters.
It's just Pixar, it's a great movie, and it was definitely worth the wait, and I'm really glad that I saw it. And I'm going to give Monsters University 3.5 out of 4.
So a lot of my thoughts are still very much the same, but I don't think this is a 3.5-star movie. I do believe that this is a very enjoyable movie. It's got a great aesthetic. It's a ton of fun. I definitely will hold to the fact that this movie feels more like a teen comedy, if anything, because if you are a fan of movies like Animal House, Revenge of the Nerds, this is a movie that you're going to see a lot of those elements roped into. Also, the cast of characters that are added to this film and to the Monsters world are great. You have Helen Mirren as the antagonist of the film, Dean Hardscrabble, and you also have great voices like Dave Foley, Sean Hayes, Alfred Molina, Aubrey Plaza, Nathan Fillion as Johnny Worthington, who is the head of the rival fraternity. And I'm really excited to know that Johnny Worthington is actually going to be making an appearance as a character in the second season of Monsters at Work. I'm really excited to see how his character is going to be portrayed. And again, seeing Monsters University is definitely an important thing to do if you want to see and remind yourself of this character. Bobby Moynihan is in this movie as well, and I still am to this very day trying to figure out how Charlie Day got into this film as art, because this is It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia Charlie Day. I don't know, he just never resonates with me as being someone who could be in a family-friendly movie. But there are also two big things about this movie that I feel are the downfall of this movie, and why, even though it is a fun movie, it is by no means anywhere near Monsters Incorporated. Number one, because of the fact that it is very much like a teen comedy. There's a lot in this movie that is not necessarily for kids. Does not mean that it is not a family-friendly movie. But there's just a lot of dialogue and things that take place in this movie that a child is not going to understand. The child mind does understand the concept of going to school, but they're not going to understand college life. They're not going to understand fraternity and sorority parties. They're not going to understand final exams, rush week. They're not going to understand this stuff. And they're going to only come and see this movie because they're going to remember characters like Mike and Sully, and even Randall Boggs, who is, thank goodness, once again voiced by Steve Buscemi. He's in this movie as well, but in a very different way. And I loved that part of this film. I think that that was one of the strongest pieces of this movie, because here's a character that we know is the villain in Monsters Incorporated, and yet in the beginning, Mike is not on good terms with Sully, but he happens to be on decent terms with Randall, and I really did like that about this movie. And the other big thing about this movie is, towards the end, we're brought into a series of scenes in this movie that definitely takes the movie in a very, very different direction. And for a movie that was over-the-top fun, over-the-top silly, and full of fast-paced and exciting moments, to get to a point that is very, I guess, mature and a little bit more on the sad side, it's also some stuff that I just don't think that kids are going to relate to and kids are going to understand. Even how Mike and Sully get out of the situation is a little bit more complex for young minds. But I can understand why a movie like Monsters University was made. This was a movie that was made for people who loved Monsters Incorporated. So this is for the young kids who went to see Monsters Incorporated, who are now teens and young adults who just want to revisit their favorite Pixar characters from a phenomenal movie that was made back in 2001. So, once again, by no means is Monsters University a bad movie. It's a very fun, charming, and enjoyable film, and there are a lot of moments that will make you smile and make you laugh. But like I said, I feel that this is not necessarily a movie for young kids. It's family friendly, except for the house party. Once again, it has no reason not to be in the movie, but for a movie that is really geared towards children, it just doesn't fit. But seeing it again, I was reminded of all the good times that I had with it, and I did have a good time with this movie again, and it definitely is a fun all-around Pixar film, which is why I am still going to give it a good rating. It's going to get 3 stars out of 4 from me. It would just feel weird to give it lower than 3 stars because there is rewatchability. I'm a proud owner of this movie, and like I said, it's not a bad movie. It's just a movie that not everyone is going to find as a truly phenomenal, groundbreaking Disney Pixar movie. But also at the time, this was a point where a lot of people were noticing that Disney Pixar was sort of losing their magic and weren't making as innovational, groundbreaking films. So that's my thoughts on Monsters University, everybody. Please leave your comments in the box below. Let me know your thoughts on Monsters University, and I will see you in the next one. If you enjoyed the video you just watched, feel free to leave a comment. Also, feel free to subscribe if you want to be up to date with our latest videos. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you in the next one. Actions speak louder than words.